Hello and welcome to another PFF Underdog Fantasy Best Ball stream. My name is Ian Hartitz. Thank you, as always, for joining us. I want to invite you all, if you have not already signed up to Underdog, use promo code PFF. You'll get $10 submit $10, use promo code PFF. You get a free PFF subscription, and they will match your deposit up to $100. Apology for the scouter brain, but I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do at pick 1-8, as I'm sure my co-hosts here are looking to do as well. PFF's finest, Dwain the Rock McFarland, also Fantasy Pros ranking expert, but he works for PFF. Nathan Jahnke, Nate the Great. Guys, how's it going? Dwain, you first.
Oh, man. Excellent. Ian, feels like it's been a really long time. I'm looking forward to this pick 4, man. I feel like I almost always am picking down on the other end.
Dwain and I have been absolutely smashing team previews for the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Invite you guys to check those out if you feel a need throughout the offseason. Nate, where are you picking from and how's it going?
I am one pick right after you, and I'm doing fine. I was without power for a good 40-plus hours, but have it back now. Good 95 degrees out right now, so the AC is slowly kicking back in. So hopefully I won't be too visibly sweating throughout this, but I'm sweating because of the heat, not because of the draft.
I got a basketball jersey on because it is hot as hell in Cincinnati right now. Ohio, really, as a whole. Don't move to Ohio, I guess. Or do.
My all AFC West, NFC West plans are in play right now, Ian.
Dwain McFarland has a lovely article on PFF.com. This is what I love because I have been vocal about my disdain for the fantasy community's week 17 chatter. I get it. It's important. It's also 1 week. Dwain, how about you tell people what you were able to find out looking at the whole season, not just 1 week of action?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the big thing really being that, I just went over to superbook.com because they actually have game totals up for every single game already. Hat tip, like to those guys. But whenever I was looking at it, the immediate thing that stood out to me, and I just wanted to look for outliers. So I looked for all the games where the totals are over 50. It's only 12.5% of the games between week 1 and 17, which are the weeks we care about. Obviously, over here on Underdog, week 17 is the big money week where you are in a pool of 470 other players if you happen to get to that round in Best Ball Mania 3, which means it's essentially like a DFS contest for that last week. But based on the conversations I'd had with Ian, even Nathan probably ribbing me over in the, the chats over on the PFF Slack channel, giving me a hard time. I was like, you know what, let's look and let's see like what teams just correlate throughout the whole season and then also kick ass in the playoffs. And, or are there teams that do that? And so when I looked at those 50-point plus game totals, 93% of them came from 12 teams. 12 teams in the NFL make up 93% of the 50-plus point totals. And when you start to look at the list of the teams that is on this list, Ian, it's not really surprising. A lot of good quarterbacks, some good divisions. So the Chiefs, the Rams, the Bucks, the Chargers, the Cardinals, the Bills, the Raiders, the Packers, the Cowboys, the Bengals, the Broncos, and the 49ers. That is 93% of those games. The other thing that I noticed is of the 10-win teams versus 10-win teams, which is pretty rare. 61% of them belong with just the NFC West versus the AFC West matchup. So when two teams that are projected for 10 wins or more right now by DraftKings Sportsbook actually face off, 61% of the time they come from those two divisions. 56% of the 50-plus point totals are actually owned by the AFC and NFC West alone. So that means half of the games right now expected to go over 50. And of course, some of these things will change as we get closer to the season, but a lot of it is driven by tempo, pace of play, and the quarterback. So even if you lose a receiver, for example, they don't care that Green Bay doesn't have receivers. Aaron Rodgers is still, Green Bay is still one of the teams here. So I just found it super interesting. If folks want to go check it all out, I break down every single one of the teams. I break down the players on each of the teams. I break down some of the ways that you could stack the different teams, thinking about the early season versus the late season versus the middle part of the season. But the bottom line is if you draft players off those 12 teams only, one, there's a ton of really good players to pick from. And then number two, you're probably going to get a boatload of shootouts.
Draft good players from good teams. Fantasy football doesn't always have to be hard, guys. Nate, you did the opposite of that, arguably, taking Najee Harris in the first round. Now, I was between him and Stephon Diggs, ended up going with Diggs. What are your overall thoughts on Najee going into year 2? And we can put the weight thing to rest, people. 4-pound difference between this time last year and now. Chill out. Don't worry about the man's weight. But Nate, what do you think about his touches and potential to, put the sort of production that we hope for from a running back going as a top 5 player at the position?
Yeah, he's someone where I know there's been also reports that he might not have quite as big of a workload, which I think has lowered his ADP a little bit, which made me happy to get him in pick 9. He just had so much volume last year. and the production didn't always match the volume, but I think a lot of that had to do with the offensive line. I think another year of that line playing together, plus some guys that they brought in, should help the offensive line play better, which should give Harris plenty more opportunities. And I know we talk about the change at quarterback. They lose a Hall of Fame quarterback, but Roethlisberger really hasn't been good these past couple of years, so they arguably have an upgrade at quarterback this season, which would only help the offense.
Dwain, we were just talking about Cam Akers and the Rams and how, like, yeah, we could have seen maybe less of a workhorse role coming if they had done literally anything to address the position in the offseason. That's kind of how I feel about Najee. Like, are they going to start giving snaps to Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland? Like, I thought Kalen Ballage was their best backup running back, and I don't even think he's on the team anymore at this point. Like, when I hear this, like they're going to limit Najee, that just seems like typical offseason coach speak. Who else are they giving the ball to?
Right. I feel like the answer is just no. I don't know what else they would do. Golly, Javonte Williams and T. Higgins. That's who just went off the board right in front of me. So do I want to keep this? Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and do this.
Who are you snagging?
I'm just going to go ahead and take Marquise Brown.
Wow.
I'm going to take Hollywood Brown. I've been moving him up the board more and more just so, I mean, look, a guy that's been a 23%, 24% targets per route run guy. Like, I don't think there's really anything to question anymore about Hollywood Brown. I know a lot of people just kind of seem to hate on him. And I think a lot of that just comes because everybody wanted Rashad Bateman, to go ahead and just take over. Yeah. And we all love Rashad Bateman. But at the end of the day, like what Marquise Brown has been able to do from a talent profile, former first-round pick, what he's been able to put up, each of his first 3 seasons, he's just checked multiple boxes. He can play inside. He can play outside. Gets to play with Kyler Murray, who I think arguably is a better passer than what he had with Lamar Jackson. And I keep things going over in the NFC West and the AFC West. Javonte was who I really wanted right there. And then T. Higgins was my backup plan. So I just had to pivot over.
Nate, where are you kind of falling on Javonte? Because as Dwain and I did our Denver Broncos team preview, our kind of takeaway was like, man, he already had over 250 combined carries and targets last year. Like, if that's his floor in a better offense, all of a sudden, maybe like the 3rd round isn't too rich for him, because we all know if he does really start to separate from Melvin Gordon, which seems possible, we're talking legit top 5, if not top 1 potential. But I think that floor is maybe being discounted enough. Like, he could easily have a pretty similar split as Melvin Gordon last year and still flirt with an RB1 finish.
Yeah, first up, I want to say that I love that you've got Dwain talking during our picks these first 3 rounds, so we've gotten to make those picks in peace.
Chestnut checkers.
Exactly.
You're welcome, Nate.
Yeah. And while I say that, I'll stall while I am on the clock and have to make my next pick. But...
Go ahead and talk through it.
Yeah, so I was just talking about the Steelers offense, and Deontay Johnson is the top guy on my board. And like I was saying with Roethlisberger, I could see this year whoever ends up being the quarterback being at least a slight upgrade over Ben Roethlisberger. So I know Johnson might not get quite as many targets as he did before, but I think he has the talent. Plus, I got Harris, so I got a couple Steelers on the roster already. But going back to your question way back then with Williams, I do think he'll start to separate at least a little bit from Melvin Gordon. Gordon is still a good player and will still see the field, but I think it only has to change a little bit compared to last year to make this 3rd round pick, make it pay off. And especially if Gordon gets hurt at some point over the course of the season, misses a game or 2, then Williams would be a huge play those games.
Dwain, were you about to off yourself if ETN got sniped right in front of you?
I was, because I passed James Conner with the last. I was so torn between James Conner and Hollywood, but I've got so much James Conner already. I was like, I got to do Hollywood. That was why I went that way with the tiebreaker, and I was like, damn it, because I was just counting on ETN coming back. But my concern, honestly, was you freaking just taking him down at the other end and not caring about ADP.
I was looking. I was between ETN and Cam Akers. I have them ranked right next to each other. Decided to go with Akers. Half-point underdog. I do think it makes more sense. Full PPR. It is tough to get away from Travis Etienne. Like, God forbid, let's say best case scenario, James Robinson does come back and he's ready to go by week 1, which really does seem unlikely based on the medical opinions in the field. ETN could be like AFC's version of DeAndre Swift in terms of what they're asking him to do, catching a lot of passes and a terrible offense with some explosive plays thrown in there in between. It's always fun to me how, kind of in the spring months of the year, we're always talking about a running back's vision and their ability, work within the scheme. And then we get into September and it's like, okay, who the hell's getting the ball? Who gives a shit about the offense? Let's just watch that volume turn into fantasy points. Guys, DK Metcalf is officially a 5th-round pick now, going behind guys like Gabriel Davis and Rashad Bateman. Is this just too far? Like, I understand Tyler Lockett, the disparity between him and Metcalf is probably too wide, but it's DK Metcalf. What are we doing here?
Who's supposed to answer?
Either of you? Do you have an opinion?
It's about to be my pick, and Nate's
I'll
trying
go
to
ahead. I think it is a little too far when we have guys like Bateman and Davis who really don't have that much experience as a fantasy success in their limited time in the NFL so far, where we've seen what Metcalf can do with Bateman and his offense with the Ravens. They very well could be running a ton, relying a lot on the tight ends. They have Mark Andrews. They drafted 2 tight ends as well. He's their best wide receiver by far, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he'll see a ton of targets. And then Davis, we've seen in Buffalo's offense, they have Stephon Diggs as their one. They have plenty of other options as well, so I'd be concerned about his targets. So I think Metcalf, we just know that he'll see a ton of targets still. Yeah, the quarterback play took a fall, but he's too talented not to. That's a little too far to slip, in my opinion.
I went ahead and took Kyler Murray at the end of round 5. Like, just when I'm seeing David Montgomery, Dobbins, Jacobs, Gibson, like, to me, maybe not Montgomery, but this is kind of what I consider like this year's running back dead zone. If these guys keep falling, then maybe they'll be out of the dead zone. Maybe they'll, be the zombie zone, whatever the hell we call when the running backs actually are available after the dead zone. But like, I don't see the need to draft Montgomery or Dobbins or Jacob or Gibson right now. And we can wait until round 7 or 8 and get guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, Cordero Patterson, amongst others. So again, don't hate the player, hate the ADP. Right now, I do think Kyler at the end of round 5 just continues to be a value. Nate, you went ahead and took, in my opinion, the last remaining tier 1 or tier 1B, whatever you want to call him, Jalen Hurts, anyone's idea of a top 6 quarterback. Like, after we get past, we get through the top 5 and then Jalen Hurts, you really need to start hoping a lot of things go right for any of these other quarterbacks to be an overall QB1. Like, it could happen, but Dwain, guys like Russ, Dak, they're just like playing a different position in terms of someone like Kyler or Jalen Hurts in terms of what they're adding on the ground.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what you're just looking for, the upside of the player that can really give you both things. And like when you look at a guy like Kyler, you look at Jalen Hurts. I mean, do we really think that, like, so for Kyler, I think he's the one quarterback in the league that could throw for 5,000 and run for 1,000. And look, we have Josh Allen number 1, but like we know that that's in Kyler's range of outcomes. Like 4,500, 750 is really safe though. And I think that right now with Jalen Hurts, with the upgrade that he has in the weapons, if they decide to throw the ball a little bit more, that's the same kind of thing you're getting. So really, I mean, you're getting access to players that can truly break the game. And that's what you're always looking for, regardless of what, position that you're picking from. That's the thing that matters the most, is are you getting someone that can truly differentiate themselves versus everyone else at the position?
I went ahead and took DeAndre Hopkins, probably a little bit early, but I really wanted to get that Kyler Hopkins, maybe even Zach Ertz stack going. I'm surprised to see Zach Ertz still as available as he is late in the drafts. I mean, still just a tight end 10, ADPs at 110, but I don't think it's much longer until Gronk passes him. Like, if there is we keep talking about Rondale Moore and Marquise Brown and stuff, but there's a chance that Zach Ertz is the big winner from the DeAndre Hopkins suspension. He just gets peppered with targets. And I understand it's, he's one of these catch and fall tight ends. The Zach Ertz Yak Twitter account remains undefeated, talking about all the times that he hasn't broken a tackle. But Nate, like, just in terms of raw target projections, I think it's hard to really rank Ertz that low. They just paid him $34 million. I know they drafted Trey McBride for some reason, but it really seems like Ertz, at least for this year and maybe next year, is going to be getting peppered targets like it's 2016 again.
Yeah, I think he's right around where he should be. He's someone who they do also have Max Williams at tight end, who was playing well before he got injured, which led the Cardinals to trade in the first place. So a little worried about his playing time because of that. And at his age, that could be a point where they take him off the field a little bit more than they were last year. But with the wide receivers they have, they could go more 2 tight end sets than we saw last year, which definitely would be in Ertz's favor. Also would probably help James Conner as well. So I think he's someone where he has a high ceiling where he can definitely be a top 3 fantasy tight end. But there's also other scenarios where he could not do as well as he did last year, or over the second half of last year.
Dwain through 6 rounds. You got Etienne and Dobbins at running back, wide receiver Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Marquise Brown, and Terry McLaurin. What are you looking to do here in round 7?
I'm trying to decide right now. I thought about going with another receiver just because it's really, where the value is. So this is pick 76, and Elijah Moore is still on the board at 60, and he's normally picked 67. So I'm just going to go ahead and go with the value. I like him as a player that, he's, me, I'm big on his talent profile. Whenever I look at what he was able to do last year, he was banged up, but his targets per route run, yards per route run, PFF receiving grade checks a lot of boxes that say that the guy has a chance to be a future star. Now, it's a crowded offense with big quarterback questions. And if the offense really works well, I think they want to run the ball more. So there are definitely challenges for Elijah Moore, but anytime, for example, and we talk about this all the time, Ian, we talk about how do you build these stacks, how do you do these different things, and one of your big things is, look, people, like, your first thing is draft good players. So I start with Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Marquise Brown, but then I come back and I get Terry McLaurin past ADP. He's normally picked 45.8, get him at pick 52. Then I get Travis Etienne right at ADP, pick 45. J.K. Dobbins, I get past ADP, normally pick 56. I get him at 69, and now I get Elijah Moore at pick 76. Whenever he's normally going off the board at pick 67. So it's kind of a mix of, okay, my first 3 picks, I was really focused in on AFC West, NFC West, because the way and it fit where the board was. I didn't really have to reach. I reached a little bit on Marquise Brown, but Deebo, I still got at value. Kupp, I got at value, and it still worked out. So it's just kind of mixing, taking the value that's falling to you with players you like, as well as trying to build out some of these stacks between these teams that we know have a lot of shootout potential.
Nate takes Hunter Renfrow at the end of round 7. There's always someone yelling at me in my mentions. That's just life in the big city. I can live with that. But guys, I had the lovely PFF fantasy account send out one of those quote graphics, and it was my point that I would take Hunter Renfrow ahead of Devontae Smith. Nate, you did not have that option, but from my point of view, looking at the guys, okay, Renfrow averaged a good 4 to 5 more fantasy points than Devontae Smith last year. Both their offenses have added alpha wide receiver ones. Both their offenses have high volume tight ends. Only one of the offenses do we have major potential volume concerns about in the passing game. I'm not expecting the Eagles to be quite as run heavy as they were at the end of last season. I also don't think they're going to magically go back to what they were in weeks 1 through 7. How do you kind of approach Devontae Smith versus Hunter Renfrow, or just, I guess, your overall thought on who you prefer?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you there, ignoring the fact that I was drafting Eagles. I do have Renfrow a little higher, and I think just to add to what you were saying, Renfrow has a very specific role in the Raiders offense where he's the slot receiver. He'll continue to be the slot receiver, and Adams won't really take those kind of plays away from him. Where what A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith were doing, there were some similarities there. Smith will have to have a little bit different role this year, making it more uncertain of how well he'll do. Maybe this new role will help him. Maybe it'll end up hurting him. So that's also why I think Renfrow at least is a much safer pick.
Great points. Dwain, that is the potential concern with A.J. Brown. We love A.J. Brown. The talent profile is wild. Non-zero chance that Devontae Smith is the number 1 still. I think it'll be AJB, but it's far more problematic, I think, for AJB than Devontae Adams, for example.
Yeah, I mean, plus you're going to get, you're talking about, a team that is really built around having Adams, Hunter Renfrow, and Darren Waller. They're going to be in shootouts galore. The Raiders are one of the teams that we named earlier. They got to play the Chargers. They got a 53-point game. The Cardinals. They got the Chiefs. You get the Chargers again. You get the Rams. So it's just like they have 5 different matchups over 50, and they have to play a lot of quality teams. I mean, the AFC West is just so loaded now because you have all the quarterbacks. You got Pat Mahomes, you got Justin Herbert, you've got Russell Wilson, and then Derek Carr. And Derek Carr is better than what most people think, and he's just going to have to air it out. So yeah, I mean, I like the idea of getting the Raiders. As far as talking about AJB, man, it's tough. Like, I think his profile is definitely a step above Devonta Smith for sure, but to your point, there is a chance, that it ends up being a split between the two. And the bigger challenge is there's, if they continue to run the ball like they did last year, it already narrows down, how many targets you're going to be able to, to get to your receivers. And you also have Dallas Goedert in the mix. The pick is on me here.
What quarterback you taking, Lance or
Trey
Scott?
Lance.
There it is.
Trey
With
Lance.
the Deebo stack already, I think.
Yeah, baby.
Ayuk's out of the picture already, but Not too.
Yeah, Ayuk just went. Ayuk was going to be the pick. He was sitting at the top of the queue. If he would have made it, I was just going to go ahead and try to squeeze Ayuk in and come back around for Lance. I probably would have got sniped. I nearly did it to that fish boy earlier. He started off with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen at pick 2 and 3. I was like, I just take Justin Herbert just to mess with him.
I've employed a little bit. I don't know what the hell you call this strategy. We'll just call it modified zero RB, because that seems to fit into everything. But through, let's see, 8 rounds, I have Kyler Murray, Cam Akers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, Stephon Diggs, Michael Pittman, DeAndre Hopkins, and Mark Andrews. Need to shore up my wide receiver room a little bit, but I like having Diggs and Pittman to hunker down, and Hopkins should be hopefully back to wide receiver 1 ways, maybe wide receiver 2 ways once his suspension is over with. I continue to love these late round running backs scene. I mean, these guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, I think they just screwed people so bad last year that they're looking at them the same way. But everyone, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, they screwed you in the 3rd and 4th rounds, not in the 7th or 8th rounds like we can get them now. So take those great wide receivers, take a tight end early. Don't be afraid to come back and get, especially in Clyde's case, I think Cordero Patterson fits in it as well, a potentially fantasy-friendly quarterback. Dwain, doubling up on the quarterbacks, which Hayden Winks actually, I think, has done some good research. Obviously, Underdog Fantasy's own Hayden Winks has done some good research showing that going quarterback actually a pretty good contrarian strategy in these big field tournaments.
Well, and again, it's stacking it with Kupp. It's another NFC West team. So I've got Lance and Stafford. I've got Kupp. I've got Debo. We've got lots of matchups on the schedule that I like. So particularly, I like stacking those 2 types of quarterbacks. I love if I can get an NFC West and an AFC West quarterback. Obviously, you throw Tom Brady's in the mix, Josh Allen, all those other elite guys would still be in the mix as well. But if I don't get one of those, I'm definitely trying to pair up out of one of those 2 divisions.
I think I'm going to take Cordero Patterson here and then be done with running back, which is, 4 running backs. And I feel like I have 4 starters with pass catching upside. And I didn't pick my second running back until pick 80, first until pick 41. It's a decent strategy where I still feel like, it's going bully RB to an extent because I have 4 running backs through the first 9 rounds, but at the same time, I have a decent enough base at the other positions to feel okay enough there. Nate, you took Chris Olave. Right now, my top 3 highest owned wide receivers are Terry McLaurin, Chris Olave, and also Tim Patrick. Don't listen to that Tim Patrick part, guys, because I want him again here later. But Nate, with Chris Olave, man, it seems like he's just, for some reason, maybe his prospect profile, I know he didn't break many tackles at Ohio State, but he's going rounds after just some of these other first-round receivers and guys that I think are in pretty similar situations. But unlike them, I mean, Chris Olave, there's a chance that this Michael Thomas injury situation doesn't get better, and all of a sudden, Chris Olave is Jameis's wide receiver 1.
Exactly, and I hope this makes Dwayne happy. I looked at the Week 17 schedule, and and the Eagles play each other, and I have 3 Eagles, and now I have 2 Saints. So
I love it, Nate.
And I just got Olave like 6 picks after his ADP.
See, you did it. See, that's how you do it. Folks, listen to the true champion, Nathan Jahnke, gets it past value and makes the stack. Like, this is how you do it. That's why you're a professional.
Thank you.
Got Rondale sniped. I was really hoping to go.
I was looking at Rondale, wondering if that's what you were doing, Hartitz.
I was between him and Ertz at this point. I already have Mark Andrews, so I was probably going to pivot to Rondale. Unfortunate. That's been, again, shout out Sigmund Bloom and some of the things he said about just the constant drumbeat throughout the offseason as a good way to kind of parse through some of the BS. Dwayne, one good thing this after another, Cliff Kingsbury, Rondale Moore. And I'm not saying Cliff has been like the best coach to listen to all the time with this stuff, but to be fair, like last year after the draft, he even said like Rondale was not going to be one of the starting guys. It seems like Rondale has a chance to just be their full-time slot receiver, and we know how fantasy-friendly that could be.
Yeah, for sure. When I look at Rondale right now, we're gonna have. I'm on my pick here, so hang on one second. Let me
feel free to talk through it for the love of
I'm looking at Timmy Patrick right here. Gonna go ahead and take him. My plan was Gronk. My plan was Gronk, but when you took Ertz, you freaked out. Whatever that other guy's, whatever that other
Teddy from Edgewood.
Is.
That's who.
Teddy from Edgewood wasn't taking Gronk until you took Ertz. So thanks, Hartitz. Yeah. So what was I even saying? Rondale. So we know we got Hopkins out for 6 games. Marquise Brown plays outside, folks. Can he play inside? Yeah, but I think a lot of people are like drawing that connection, and I don't know that it's necessarily there. That, well, Christian Kirk leaves, you bring in Marquise Brown, he's going to play the stretch role in the slot. Marquise Brown can play outside. That leaves the slot open for Rondale Moore. Cliff Kingsbury, all the coaching staff has already been on the record multiple times this saying we're going to use Rondale Moore and we're going to expand his route tree. So that's really all I need to hear, because I think out of the gate, you're going to have A.J. Brown playing for DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe Antoine Wesley rotates a little bit with A.J. Green. And then you're going to have on the other side, Hollywood Brown outside. That lets you put Rondale Moore in the slot. So I think you get 6 games where you get to see what Rondale has. And guess what, man? The Cardinals can't mess around. Out of the gate, they play Kansas City. It's at a 53-point game total. Las Vegas, 51.5. And the Rams at 50.5. We're going to know really quick if Rondale Moore is a big part of the plans for the Cardinals right out of the gate.
Van Jefferson going off the board. First pick of round 11. I just think there's better late-round wide receivers out here than Van Jefferson. Like, don't discount the chances that Ben Skowronek, Tutu freaking Atwell, like they have other guys that could actually make Van Jefferson more of a complimentary receiver. I think Josh Palmer, Jamison Crowder, maybe even like Mecole Hardman, some guys like KJ Hamler, who could be out of 3 wide receiver sets, but they're 1 injury away from just really having a lot of things going their way. Even if, like, God forbid, something happened to Cooper Kupp or Allen Robinson, like, I'm just not convinced that Van's the type of guy that would to see his role like significantly change. Nate, do you have some late round wide receivers that you're particularly fond of right now?
The one guy that's sticking out to me is, at least on my board, that's still available, Corey Davis of the Jets. I know he had a disappointing year last year. I know they drafted a wide receiver, but he still played well before he got injured with them. And played very well with the Titans the year before when he wasn't injured. So I think as long as he can stay healthy, I think with the hype at the other wide receivers, that'll free up the offense. Ideally, Zach Wilson plays better this year. If not, that'll be problems. And if I don't figure out,
It's panicking.
We almost had you. Did you have to auto select?
Ooh, no. That's a good pick.
Oh, look at you, and you go with the West.
My page refreshed on me. So, like, at 8 seconds left, I'm like, okay, hopefully it refreshes within these 8 seconds, and then I'll make my pick. But
shout out Fantasy Football Hustle with Drake and Mr. McFarland himself. Yeah, we got some Antoine Wesley talk. Why the hell not? All right, guys, we are going hot and heavy into round 12. I just snagged Jamison Crowder, quite possibly Josh Allen's starting slot receiver. Isaiah McKenzie did not get that contract that we were maybe hoping he was going to, and for them to go out and sign Crowder, I do think he is the better spot for that. And yeah, Cole Beasley, every single season in Buffalo, triple-digit targets, and now you don't have to worry about your personal feelings about the guy. So Jamison Crowder, someone that is going late, and I think that there's a handful of guys, man, where like if we look up after week 1, they have 10 targets, wouldn't be that surprised. I do think he is one of them. Nate, what are you doing here? Oh, you took Pat Freiermuth. Why did you take Pat Freiermuth?
He was out of value, like 10 picks after his ADP. I had Dallas Goedert, who's a fine tight end, but I think I was fine to get another tight end around here since I felt like it was a value. I have gotten a couple Steelers already, so having a 3-person Steelers, or I guess 4-person Steelers stack now. But
by the way, I was flipping off Dwain, not you viewers out there, because I took Jahan Dotson, and I'm guessing Dwain wanted him.
I definitely had him in the queue, Hartitz, but I would never let you know. Come on.
All right, guys, I've been afraid to tweet this because I just don't want the angry people coming at me. I think the best round 18 pick there is right now might be Carson Wentz. Like, round 18, and we can get an upside QB2. Like, I'm not saying he needs to be your favorite quarterback. He's going like past Davis Mills and Jared Goff's in some drafts. Like, Carson Wentz can still put up a few fantasy points here and there. And round 18, it's like, if you can get him as your QB3, QB2, and you already have McLaurin and Dotson, that's just such a cheap stack that I don't think it's going to be a 0. Am I crazy, Nate?
I'm fine if you're trying to get the stack, but that's probably the only case that I'd be drafting him in that round.
Well, when you have Terry McLaurin like 60, 70% exposure like I have, it's pretty – you got the stack going every single time. Like Dwain –
until they trade him.
Dwain, like, all right, I have Dotson now. You have Terry. Like, when round 18 comes, Carson Wentz is right there.
Yeah, dude, I like Wentz that late. and there's plenty of options that you can put him with that you get later. I'm down. And if you're feeling spicy, Ian, you stack it with some Browns. That doesn't feel as good though, does it?
Not quite. Alpal calling me
You're
out.
like, oh, and look, speaking of Browns, there goes David Bell, man. Talking about consistent drumbeat. That dude from OTAs to mini camps, like people are going nuts about him. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with him, but maybe there really is something there.
Whenever you can get Jacoby Brissett's probable number 3 wide receiver, I guess you got to do it. I'm getting called out for Zach Ertz being a little bit unnecessary. I get it. I was trying to get the Cardinals stack there, but when you already have Mark Andrews, probably didn't need to. Where I was picking Ertz, I don't think there was a wide receiver or running. Yeah, like I would have taken Rondale over him. Looking at the other guys around there, I guess Kareem Hunt could have been a fun time, Tim Patrick. So there were good options, not great options. I think Ertz's upside is going a little bit underestimated. I got him past value. So I'll say it was a mediocre pick, not a great one. I am happy to potentially get the Patriots' number 1 wide receiver, Jacoby Myers, all the way at the round of 13, though. I know, Al.
I love that. Love that. Dude, and I think, man, here's the thing with Jacoby Myers. I get it. He hasn't scored the touchdowns. He's not a big play threat. But, like, overall, his profile for the first 2 years in the league from somebody that wasn't, was he a 7th-round pick or undrafted? I'm trying to remember. Oh, my gosh. Albert Okabonum to
live with it.
Soup for you.
Shut up. We've heard
it.
Get
out of here. Jeez.
I don't want to go through this because I know Nate's an Alberto guy too. I don't want to be double teamed like this. I
should have just taken Alberto over Irv Smith. I was trying to get both. I was playing the ADP game because Irv Smith goes before. Don't tell me to stop it. I do my research, Hartitz. Come on, man.
It's like Greg Dulcich just doesn't even exist to you, Dwain.
Yeah, he doesn't. I don't even know who Greg Dulcich is. Is that a person?
Nate, you were super high on Albert O before the NFL draft.
Nate's smart.
Yeah. Are you getting off, or are we doubling down?
I'm still on, just not quite as far away from his ADP as before. Now, a little draft him a round or 2 later than I would have before, but still.
Which you can do because his ADP's fallen 4 rounds because of Greg Dulcich.
But we liked him because of his talent, knowing how many other wide receiver options there were in Denver. So just adding another option only hurts it a little bit because we still think he's really talented, and drafting another tight end doesn't change that.
I will say it was a lot easier for me to yell about this when he was going as like a top 12 tight end. Now that he's at tight end 17 or so, like there's only so many bad things you can say about a guy going this late in drafts. Nate, you went ahead and snagged Gus Edwards. Have either of you gotten a firm update on Gus Edwards' recovery? I know it was him and Dobbins were preseason, because right now it seems like Dobbins is sliding a little bit based on last year, but Gus almost seems to be getting penalized more for the injury than Dobbins was. Dwain, have you heard anything about this?
No, I have not heard anything. Well, I heard Dr. Edwin Porras talk about it, and he was a little more concerned about him than Dobbins, just because the fact that Gus is already 27 years old. And so that, the age factor does come in.
And it's not as, because I know one of the things Edwin likes to use is it's fair. Like, you use high-end draft capital as a good sign of.
Okay. Did Isaiah Spiller die?
No, he's right there.
Did he die today, though? Like, he normally goes 137. I'm getting him at
Justin Jackson.
165.
Did Justin Jackson get signed? That would be my only guess.
I'm taking him. I wanted him to pick before, but I had to take a tight end. I was just like, when that happens, you're just kind of like, okay, did I miss something while Ian and I were on a podcast? Did he break his leg in camp?
Oh, here we go. Arizona Cardinals had Justin Jackson amongst a few other guys take part in a mini camp tryout. Just a tryout, though. I mean, that's what you all need to know about the Darrell Williams freaking era. Can we chill out when a freaking veteran running back gets a men deal in June, everyone? Like, that's the thing about this. I think there needs to be something said when guys like Melvin Gordon and Jerick McKinnon, and I know Melvin got a couple extra million than like the minimum, but they didn't get signed until June. Like, I think it's pretty clear these teams, like, they had the draft. They had an entire month to then sign them, and they still took their time. Like, that's my opinion of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I saw Jerick McKinnon come on strong at the end of the year, and he looked fine. But, like, what took them so long to get him signed? It wasn't a big deal. We know that. Nate, thoughts?
I think that just says everything you need to know about running backs and how much teams value them now. And they can get a guy late in the offseason, and he can be a guy that contributes significantly in the season. Like, the Saints were just happy with the running backs to start last year, and then they traded for Mark Ingram, and all of a sudden Alvin Kamara seeing like 5 to 10 fewer touches a game because all of a sudden they have this 30-year-old running back. So all it takes is some guy that we don't think is all that valuable. And yeah, they aren't going to have fantasy value, but it'll hurt the fantasy value of the starter.
Dwain setting up the one stack.
Man, the one draft, I mean, I love the way this draft is going. And this is what happens, but people have just not laid off of tight end. Like they have just kept plowing through them. So
it's my fault. It's my fault. I started it.
you hope that it's your fault. But I've got Greg Dulcich in the queue. And if worse comes to worse, my last pick of the draft, we'll just make it Greg Dulcich, just so that if Ian's right and I get to win $2 million off of it, I'll be happy that he was right.
My God, it's not about Greg Dulcich. It's about what he could mean. You don't get it. You don't get it. I was going to maybe pick KJ Hamler. Ended up going with Jamal Williams. Like, Jamal just seems to be, like, I really think his role could be a lot closer to someone like Melvin Gordon, Michael Carter. And even those guys are maybe cheaper than they should be. And Jamal is just still available around 15, 16. Like, there's just no other running backs at this point that could have both an early down, decent enough early down role and actual, like, probably not RB1 upside if Swift gets hurt, but I think he'd be in that upside RB2 range. I know last year they were using other guys when Swift went down, but Jamal Williams was also coming back from an injury himself and wasn't 100%. It was a terrible Lions team. There was no point in putting Jamal out there for like 80% of the snaps. Jamal Williams, Deontay Foreman, and to a slightly lesser extent, Hassan Haskins, more for a pure handcuff role. Those continue to be 3 running backs. I'm just getting all over the place in these late rounds of the draft. Dwain, you like those guys?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely down with all of those dudes as the handcuffs late rounds. Like I just reworked my tiers earlier. Like I haven't like posted it yet, but like Haskins is one that like I just kind of keep like moving him up a little bit, like every time. But I think he fits, at this point. Like I think he fits, in not that first tier of handcuffs, but wouldn't you say he's probably that second tier, of handcuffs right now? Like he and Tyrion Davis-Price and some of these other guys.
Yeah. I don't even know about Tyrion Davis-Price. I think Haskins, I'd take him over Tyrion Davis-Price. Who the hell knows with the 49ers, which I guess is a reason to draft him, but it's also a reason not to. Like, I don't know.
Well, he's got the better draft capital. So, I mean, we definitely care, about that. And to your point, it's just really like it's also you're getting into that really good division. I think right now, I mean, everybody assumes Tyrion Davis-Price is the 2, but to your point, we really don't know for sure, like who the number 2 back right now on the 49ers is behind Elijah Mitchell, unless Nate's got, a tip for us.
Well, I mean, Deebo Samuel's the 1 and then Mitchell's the 2, and then we're talking about the 3 here.
I think JaMychal Hasty isn't getting enough respect here. So, Nate, you're on the clock. What are you thinking?
Figuring out which wide receiver I want. I'm happy with my 5 running backs, happy with my 2 tight ends, and I'll find waiting on a quarterback. So just deciding among some wide receivers, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Kendrick Bourne, one of the free agent wide receivers, Curtis Samuels there is tempting. But let's go with Devin Duvernay.
I'm going to take my last wide receiver in Mr. Julio Jones. He's going to go somewhere. He's going to be drafted a hell of a lot earlier than he is now. Just look at Jarvis Landry. This is how it happens. The uncertainty has these guys going outside the top 80 wide receivers. I don't care what team he goes to. If he goes to the Buccaneers in a complimentary role, he is going to be higher than he is now. That's just life in the big city. Dwain, you're on the clock here soon. Do you still only have 1 quarterback? Because I do, and I'm not feeling great about it.
I have two quarterbacks, and oh my God, like these guys will not stop on the tight ends. Like I'm actually was about to physically draft Austin Hooper. Now
Ingram.
I'm taking Curtis Samuel right now.
What's your beef with Evan Ingram? They paid him money. Dan Arnold is not going to make
I'm fine with Evan Ingram on this team. I'm fine with it. I'm just looking. I was just looking at the draft. I was looking at the draft board behind me. All these guys, I think everybody behind me that I just passed already have 2 tight ends. Yes, they do. They all have 2 tight ends. So I'm letting the tight end go. I wanted to take the receiver. Curtis Samuel was the value on the board. I'm leaving my Carson Wentz stack set up. So if they leave me Evan Ingram, I'll take it. If they don't, I'm just going to take Carson Wentz right here, to go with Curtis Samuel and with Terry McLaurin, and I'll have 3 quarterbacks. Good God. Look at the tight ends. What the hell?
want to invite all of our listeners and viewers, first of all, say thank you. And second of all, sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code PFF and play just $10 to get a free PFF subscription. Underdog will also go ahead and match any first deposit up to $100. Saw our guy, Tony Blumsheen, here in the comments asking what best ball is. If you're just, trying to be funny and stuff, that's fine. And haha, if you're just being serious, I want to let you know that you draft the best ball team and that's it. No waivers, no in-season lineup setting. You draft one of these and yeah, your money is going to be tied up until the season's over at the end of December, but every single lineup's optimized. That's why we're taking multiple quarterbacks, multiple tight ends, maybe things we wouldn't be doing in a redraft league. I love it. Drafting is the best part of fantasy football. Underdog lets you do it at any time. Like I'm, sitting on my couch at 2 a.m. with a book in one hand, beer in another, doing Underdog drafts, having a great time. If you're as obsessed with fantasy football as we are, you can always find someone else to draft with the Underdog Fantasy. And I, for one, really appreciate that. I need a quarterback. Dwain, I'm going to take Wentz.
Oh, dude, I knew Wentz was your pick. That's why I really wanted to take him.
At this point, I mean, look, he's being treated as the last starting quarterback, like the worst starting quarterback, because there's Marcus.
Well, yeah, when you look at the rest of the queue, like he's the only name that stood out. It was so like Mariota, Trubisky, Mayfield. To your point, like none of these guys are starting. He was all that was remaining, and he was just sitting there. And I should have went ahead and done it over Evan Ingram, but I had to, because the way tight ends went, I had to have three. There's no way that I could do a 2 tight end build on this team. I like the team too much to just, as much as I wanted to take Wentz, it would have been the wrong move strategically for me to pass the tight end.
If you want to just do a minimum 8-game fantasy points per game last year, Carson Wentz would be 16th. Like he only averaged 0.6 fewer points than Derek freaking Carr. He's getting better weapons in Washington. He has a better rushing floor than a lot of these guys going there. And if I really wanted to be a dick, I could note that he had, he was the QB 14. He had 10 fewer fantasy points than Derek Carr all of last season. Like it's just, Carson Wentz. I understand that we can't go longer than a day without Colts brass, saying something new that's just mean about the guy. But I just think that it's a good example of someone that's been, a lot of negative news that when you dig into it a little more, none of it's kind of talking about what he's going to be doing as a fantasy player in the year 2022. And it's round 17. Look at the other players that are going off the board right now. Felix Jones, Tyquan Thornton. Not saying they can't do anything either, but I just think that a starting quarterback with a history of putting up some decent fantasy numbers could be there. So if we haven't lost all of our viewers with me just going on and on about Carson Wentz, Nate, talk through who you're targeting here with your final pick.
Yeah, it'll be another wide receiver just to get me up to 9, get me my 2.592 that I'm happy with. Donovan Peoples-Jones is probably the guy who's sticking out to me the most. John Mechie with the Texans looks tempting, and I'm just kind of scrolling up and down my board, seeing if anyone stands out. I don't think anyone else really fits my build all that well, so I'll just go with Peoples-Jones and call it a day.
Dwain, who are the Cardinals play in Week 17?
Who? The Cardinals?
The Falcons.
Yeah, the Falcons.
Shit. Oh, let's do it. No, I can't take Auburn tape. I can't.
Brian Edwards is right there.
I don't want Brian Edwards.
Brian Edwards is just waiting, Ian. He's there for the taking.
You know what? Fuck the Week 17 matches. I'm taking Deontay Foreman. CMC's likely handcuffed. Maybe, just maybe, he's going to have an early down role for himself. He's another one of these guys. Him and Hassan Haskins are the two, just consistently round 17, round 18 running backs I see myself going back to time and time again. Dwain, you're up in 4 picks. Are you looking at Haskins?
Yep. I was looking at Foreman and Haskins. It's one of these two.
I think they're the same way, where I think if McCaffrey or Henry get hurt, we're not talking about a top 12 running back appearing, but I do think they'd probably be top 24. Man.
Mechie is the other name that's on the board. I want one more back with my build because I have Etienne, Dobbins, Ronald Jones, Rashad White, Isaiah Spiller. So it's like I might get lucky and get a little bit of value, as far as spike week out of Spiller, if he works in, with the great Nate Austin Eckler. But most likely not getting that with Rashad White. He's more of almost a pure handcuff to Lenny. Maybe he gets a little bit of passing down work. Ronald Jones, I could get some spike week work. He improves if for some reason, we have CEH hurt. So it's like I needed another shot there at running back, just the way that the roster construction has played out.
Randall Cobb, second to last pick. Nate, I didn't ask you, almost every one of these we do, I got to ask you about the Packers wide receivers. Any leans going on here as we're getting a little bit of news out of OTAs? Is Watkins still the one we should be throwing that late round dart at, or one of these rookies maybe catching your eye?
It sounded like Aaron Rodgers was more so praising the veterans than the rookies, which, there's plenty of time for the rookies to gain his trust. But right now, it looks like the veterans. Allen Lazard went very early in this draft.
It's like round 7 or something. I saw that. Come on.
It's too early for him, but it sounds like right now, if the season started today, he would be the number one guy. But that's probably also because Rodgers has plenty of trust in him at this point. So
it is the thing. It is the thing, Dwain. I understand if we haven't seen guys get the targets before, it's very small sample size of them getting it. But if there ever was going to be a case where we saw these wide receivers make a big jump, MVS and, to a probably higher extent, Allen Lazard being attached to Devontae freaking Adams, the biggest target hog in all of football. If we were going to jump through these hoops, that would be the exception. Now paying a premium pick to find out, that's where we draw the line.
Yeah, I'm out. I know what Marquise Valdez-Scantling is, and I'm okay being wrong. His profile says that, okay, we got a 1 in 100 shot of him turning into something different. Allen Lazard is like a 1 in 80. So fine. I mean, we want to take, and Lazard goes a little bit, ahead of MVS, but look, the Packers are going to end up spreading the ball around. Everybody's going to get 15 to 18% target share. The Chiefs are going to run through you're going to run through, Travis Kelce. I think Sky Moore is the next chip I would want to have. Then you'd probably say Juju and MVS. The problem is your point, Ian, the ADPs when we first started drafting on those guys was round 11, round 12. Well, now whenever they creep up into round 9, I'm not that interested. We just, no matter where they go to play, you still have to be good enough, to really demand those level targets. And 2 players that are going into year 5 that have had enough time to play and be on the field, even their targets per route run aren't there, right? Which doesn't, ding them for not getting to be on the field and earn, a big target share. It's just looking at when they were on the field. So yeah, I'm out on those 2 players. I'd much rather take players like Tim Patrick that we also know is not going to get a 25% target share because it's not there. Like Nate said earlier, the Broncos are going to spread the ball around, but Tim Patrick is a player I know I've already seen, the underlying data says, that he's already put up wide receiver 2 worthy PFF receiving grades, things that neither, that we haven't seen from either of the other 2 guys that we just talked about. Neither one of those guys have even had a wide receiver 5 PFF receiving grade. So in the end, I think people are tricking themselves. They think, oh, well, if I take Lazard, he's got an upside to be a 25% target share, when really, his profile, could it happen? Yeah. But where you're taking him, I'd much rather take Tim Patrick 30 picks later, realizing that his upside is probably only 20% as well, but I know he can get there. So that's just the way I think about it. When I start to tier the players, immediately guys stick out to me. I'm like, well, if I can get Tim Patrick 30 picks later, I'm not going to have Allen Lazard. I'm not going to have MVS.
Nate, everyone can find you on Twitter at @PFF_Nate Jahnke. Your award-winning ranks are on the website. It's just nice having, the ability to sort between you, me, Dwain, or consensus. We can just, completely disregard everything Dwain and I say and just get Nate's ranks right there for us. I believe you said in a meeting, maybe I'm making this up, but you're getting back in the content swing here coming up?
Oh, yeah, just after July 4th, which is when things start to pick up again. I'll hit the ground running, get PPR rankings up, get my dynasty rankings updated, and all the positional rankings, league format rankings, all the sleepers and league winners and all that fun stuff.
And we'll continue to be back with plenty of Nate, Kevin, Cole, Jared Evans, the whole PFF fantasy crew here on Tuesdays or Wednesday afternoon with our best ball happy hours at, probably I was drinking a Gatorade, so I didn't really set the tone. We can get drunk next week or something like that, guys. Dwain, let the people know what you have on PFF.com. As always, they can find you on Twitter at Dwain McFarland.
So the article dropped today, really just focusing in, a full breakdown, of those 12 teams that I talked about that make up 93% of the teams over on Superbook that show game totals of 50 points or more. Also, all of the 10-win team versus 10-win team matchups, all broken down. I look at the rosters. We talk about the different things you can do there. And then tomorrow, I'm actually going to have something that's coming out that's kind of along the lines of what I was just talking about with Lazard and with MVS, but the opposite, really looking at players that have shown us enough in targets per route run. And now this year we have a good reason to think that their actual routes run per drop back is going to go up. So you guys mentioned one of them that will be in it earlier, which is Hunter Renfrow. When we look at Josh McDaniels, 95% routes run, pretty much for all of his slot receivers. He keeps them out there when they're in 12 personnel, when they're in 21. And we've got a heavy top heavy attack with the Raiders. So even though he's going to have more target competition with Devontae Adams, let's say his targets per route go down, but he's now running a route on 95% of the plays instead of 76% of the plays, he still has a shot as an upside as to jump into that wide receiver 2 tier. At worst, you're probably getting a wide receiver 3, and you can draft him as a wide receiver 4. So I'll cover my favorite 10 players that fit those 2 criteria.
Make sure you check that out. If you need a PFF subscription to do so, again, all you got to do, play $10 on Underdog Fantasy using promo code PFF. You'll get that free PFF sub. You'll get Nate's rankings, Dwain's articles behind the paywall, PFF Greenline tool. Again, we're not asking you guys to just buy a book or something that once you're done, you're done. We're trying to help you make money, fantasy, gambling, everything throughout the rest of this year and into the season, and just have a good time. I mean, the amount of content we got going up daily, very proud of it, very proud to support it. Team previews from myself will continue to be rolling out each and every week until we're done with all the teams. Shocker, should be early in July, and you can catch myself and Dwain on the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast, breaking down all those if you're into listening. So for Nate, yes.
7 of your 18 picks are from the 12 teams. Look at you.
Pick good players on good teams, guys. Again, fantasy does not need to be hard. For Dwain, for Nate, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone. Until next week, take care.